Uzbekistan is playing host to the 9th annual Multidimensional Poverty Peer Network meetings. These meetings bring together a whole host of leaders, experts, and researchers from around the world. Right now, over 50 of them are in the meeting hall behind me to discuss how multidimensional poverty is manifested in the countries around the world and the most accurate ways to collect data. Uzbekistan launched its pilot project in March of this year and has contributed more than $2.5 billion towards alleviating poverty within the country. Over the last 3 years, Uzbekistan has reduced the incidences of poverty from 17 to 11%, impacting over 3 million lives. Come with me to explore more about what exactly multidimensional poverty is and get some of the experts to tell us some of their insights on how it's manifested not only here in Uzbekistan, but around the world. Let's go. You are also one of the originators of the methodology around MPI, correct?
Well, Mexico was the first country to have officially a multidimensional poverty measurement, an indicator. It was the first one in the world, 2009. So we got involved on that. The reason why Mexico got it is because our law mandated to have a multidimensional poverty in Mexico. So we worked with national and international experts, including Sabine Al-Qaeda and James Foster, who helped us to set up the indicator in 2009. So we've been there for some time and then working also with other countries.
And why is it so important to have these indicators? Why is multidimensional poverty so important to highlight?
Well, the reason is that poverty is about multiple needs. When people are in poverty, of course they suffer the lack of income, but they also suffer the lack of other services. Sometimes it's not directed to income all the time. So when the child doesn't go to school, when you don't have access to health services, when you don't have access to social security, where your house is not in good condition, then you are poor and you suffer poverty by income and by various deprivations. Some are related, some are not related. Therefore, when we understand poverty in that way, then we can solve poverty in a multidimensional strategy.
Considering it seems like it takes quite a long time to gather all of the data necessary and then even then to analyze it, wouldn't then that data be somewhat outdated once you get the report ready?
It is true that, the best thing we can do is to have information, right? Of course, you may have some delay in getting the information from the field and then getting it ready on the statistical office and then the analysis. So we can speed up things. So not to be so much updated, but at least we have something, right? So if we have surveys which are regularly set up, then in a systematic way, we can learn how we are. The problem is when we have censuses or surveys that are 10 years old, and we don't have the new ones. Then we have an issue because there's a long way between the diagnostic and what we want to do. So, the best thing to do is to have ongoing ways of measuring things.
And what for you would be the biggest way or the best way to go through keeping it ongoing? What is the most efficient way to keep up to date?
Well, first is the commitment from government, and the commitment for government to be able to set budget for that. Not only for 1 year, but well in advance. So we plan our surveys, our censuses for a long time. So we know that in 2024, 26, 20, whatever, we will be doing that. And then we have budget for that. Secondly, I think there are innovative ways of getting information now. So you may have, for instance, information from satellites, where you can see the lights, or you can see people consuming differently through the mobile phones. So we are in a new era where we can get information more easily, and you don't have to do always surveys. So we should be prepared to do surveys, do censuses, but also get this new way of getting information. So to be ready to have information in a systematic way.
So we hope to create a space as a community.
This is a very interesting conference that was organized here in Uzbekistan on the MPI experiences for different countries. It reflects also the commitment of the country, of the leadership, to tackle poverty issues. And during the past, I would say, 2 days, there was lots of experiences that were shared at different levels. Some of it they're still working on the MPI. It will be introduced in their countries. Some, like Uzbekistan here, actually introduced the MPI report successfully recently with various indicators on poverty-related issues from education, from energy, from food security, etc. For other experiences from Latin America that is considered as advanced experiences, where they are looking at future simulations of certain measures that would basically tackle poverty issues in a sort of an if scenario, situation, to inform the policymakers what could be the consequences if we applied that policy intervention or this policy intervention, So in a nutshell, it was very, useful, a platform that, there was international experiences that were shared. It was also useful for Uzbekistan to see what would be the future, policies that could be piloted, its impact, and so on. And that's, how I see it so far.
And how do you see UNDP here in Uzbekistan working with perhaps the next MPI coming out next year?
Yes, this is an ongoing process. There'll be several iterations of the MPI that needs to be updated, on a regular basis. What would be basically our focus going forward is to see if this MPI can be also tailored to different, levels in the country. If we talk about the rural level in the country, it would probably require a certain methodology. We also would be very much hoping in the future as a UNDP role to see and push this as a policy tool that would help basically the government to make informed evidence-based decision on policy interventions to tackle poverty. Those two areas, on the modification of MPI, to suit more the country's requirement, as well as to pilot this as a evidence-based policy tool would be really, the way going forward for us.
Can you please give us some insights into why it's so important for Uzbekistan to have launched this pilot program?
As you know, that since 2020, the Uzbekistan announced huge reforms against the poverty reduction reforms under the leadership of the President Mirziyoyev. And as you know, that this policy was so successful that during this last 2-3 years, we reduced the monetary poverty rate from 17% to 11%. So, the poverty is not a single-dimensional issue. So, the Uzbekistan right now, in order to assess the effectiveness of various policies, we started implementing this multidimensional poverty, the measurements. Uzbekistan doesn't want to only reduce the poverty rate only in the from the monetary side. We also want to see how these economic policies, how these economic reforms are affecting, the well-being or various aspects of the well-being of, our population. So that's why we started first our pilot project, so that this pilot project was very successful. So we did in the first step, we did the 1,500 households, and we asked the people, when do they consider themselves as a poor? Yes, so the people said that some people, they consider themselves as a poor when they have the bad living conditions. Someone is a monetary side, someone is education, someone's access to the health. So that's why. When we created this multidimensional poverty indicator for the Uzbekistan, we took the opinion of the Uzbek population and we generated this index based on the opinion of the Uzbek generation. So then in the second step, we took the 4,500 households in Uzbekistan and we assessed this, the poverty index, and we measured what is for example, let's say poverty rates in different aspects of the Uzbekistan in the household level. So that's why. So this was a pilot. Now we started already implementing this with the agents of the statistics under the President's Office of Uzbekistan. So probably by the next year we will start having our official Multidimensional Poverty Index, and this will be one of the key indicators which shows the effectiveness of the reforms in various areas of Uzbekistan.
I saw your presentation inside, and what stood out to me was the mention of the importance of entrepreneurship and the startup ecosystem to helping eradicate and alleviate multidimensional poverty in Botswana. Can you give us a little bit of a summary of what you presented for us and how you think other countries could learn from your model?
Thank you very much for that question. I take it as a compliment that as a country we saw it fit that we come up with a Ministry of Entrepreneurship, which was a result of the government rationalization exercise, which took the poverty eradication programs and put it under the same ministry. And therefore in this ministry what we are doing, we are more interested in creating wealth. We don't see people just to be in poverty without being entrepreneurs or to be small businesses that can produce for their own consumption and grow into businesses that can contribute positively to the national development plan or to the national cake. So it is very important for us to mentor, to also bring and inculcate entrepreneurship in the mindset of the poor so that they can grow their own products, they can manufacture their own products which can be sold, which can be traded. And as government, we should also be seen to open markets for those enterprises so that we create employment opportunities, we create wealth for everybody so that we become a nation that is very wealthy, a nation that is self-sufficient. And it is our desire that by 2036, we're taking Botswana from upper middle income status to a high income status. That is the dream of the Botswana nation.
There were attempts from last year to actually complete a big survey that will allow Uzbekistan to collect the data and analyze the multidimensional poverty components for the households and for children. And this is the first time, so it's a very big step forward in establishing the, let's say, the situation of people living in Uzbekistan from the multidimensional perspective. So Uzbekistan has now a pilot survey that allows to calculate two different indicators that are looking at the multidimensional poverty for households, which is the MPI, and for children, which is MODA.
And what's the difference a little bit between these two and the findings that you've seen from it?
Yeah. So mainly it's the methodological difference, because for the MODA we specifically look at the families and children and specifically look at children characteristics and what are these different indicators, that deprivations from the children's perspective, because they're different from the general households. And that is why it is so important that Uzbekistan now has this opportunity to differentiate between general multidimensional poverty rates and the specificities of child poverty, because child poverty in itself is very different and has different characteristics and different dimensions of deprivation.
What are some of the indicators of child poverty?
So in Uzbekistan, we were also lucky to have both, really. We have monetary child poverty rates and we have multidimensional child poverty rates. Some of the key deprivations from the child perspective in the multidimensional poverty index, what we've seen, we are related to things like heating and access to clean water and access to the early childhood development. These were the drivers of the index itself. And we also have seen that there are some deprivations where girls are doing better and then the others where boys are doing better. And overall, we found that almost, let's say, every third, a little bit more than third kids in this country are multidimensionally poor from the indicator that we have constructed. And of course, this is a pilot one, which means that as time comes, it might require some additions, some changes, and looking into more details. But we also have seen very interesting thing that when you're comparing monetary poverty and the multidimensional poverty, first of all, rate-wise, there is this big difference, right? We have almost 14% of children in monetary poverty in Uzbekistan compared to the general population, which is 13%, and it's a big decrease from 21%. But then when you look at the multidimensional, it's over 40%. So there is a big gap between monetary and multidimensional, but then also there is the big difference between the regions themselves. So there are some regions who have highest numbers of monetarily poor children, and then there are regions who have highest numbers of multidimensionally poor children, and they don't really coincide. They are not necessarily the same regions, which means that if you don't have an insight from both of these aspects, any kind of a poverty reduction program that the country is going to develop is going to miss the critical point. And now with this data available at our hands, I believe the policymakers have a wonderful opportunity to develop the poverty reduction programs that will definitely take into consideration those differences and of course be able to reduce the poverty rates in the long term and meet the SDGs.